An elderly woman, thinking Herson was taking her to a nursing home, stepped out of the car, feeling weak in the knees, her heart pounding behind her ribcage. He had known this day would come eventually, and she had told herself she was ready for it 4 months now. Elena Rojas, an 81-year-old widow, had been living with her son Gabriel and his wife Camila in a small apartment in Sacramento, California. Elena had lost almost everything some years ago after a devastating wildfire consumed her old wooden home and orchard near Sonoma. The world she had built with her late husband, Daniel, had vanished in one terrible night she had survived, but the life she had known was nothing more than ashes and distant memories. She had moved in with Gabriel and Camila, so she could recover. But as weeks turned into months and then years, she felt more and more like a burden. Gabriel worked long hours as a civil engineer, while Camila managed a busy pediatric clinic. Their days were full, and their evenings short. Elena found herself alone, most of the time confined to a small room in their apartment. She tried not to complain. She told herself it was better than living on the street and that Herson had done her a great kindness by taking her in. But her heart ached for the life she had lost and the independences she once cherished. She was grateful for the help from Inez, who occasionally dropped by with homemade tamales or pandals. But Inez made no secret of her opinion that elderly parents often ended up cast aside soon enough. It's always the same querida, Inez would say, rolling her eyes. They're busy and we're old, we get in the way. Elena tried not to let those words sink in too deep, but they lingered in the corners of her mind, especially on the quiet afternoons when Gabriel and Camila barely said more than a quick hello before rushing off again. Elena remembered her old home in Sonoma fondly. It had been a modest ranch house on a patch of land where she and Daniel had grown apples and peaches. Daniel had worked tirelessly to maintain the orchard, and Elena had helped plant and harvest. They had been a team building a life out of sun-kissed fruit trees and shared laughter in the evening, as they would sit on the porch, looking out at the rolling hills, sipping tea, and listening to the gentle rustle of leaves their horse, Estrella, Agent Lechest Nutmare, would graze near as they discussed the future they dreamed of. Growing old, they were passing the orchard on to Gabriel, making it a place their family could always return to. But everything changed the night. The fires swept through Sonoma County. Fierce winds and dry conditions had created a perfect storm. Eleanor remembered lighting a single candle when the power flickered out. Daniel had been in the barn checking on Est. Rel, exhausted from the day's labors, she must have dozed off in the living room, and by the time she walked to thick smoke, it was too late to save the house, the orchard, or Daniel, who never made it out of the barn. Neighbors pulled Elena out barely alive. She spent weeks in the hospital, waking to find that her entire life had burned to the ground. Gabriel took her and drove her to Sacramento and tried his best to help her rebuild her life. But Elena never truly recovered. Daniel's absence and the loss of her orchard weighed on her soul. Living with Gabriel and Camila was supposed to be a temporary solution, a time to heal and figure out the next steps. But as she watched her adults on drift through the apartment, too busy to talk, and her daughter-in-law, too exhausted to share more than a few polite words, Elena felt more like an inconvenience than family. Her health declined, her memories grew hazy, and she would sit for hours staring at the one photographs he managed to save from the fire. It showed her and Daniel standing beneath the blooming apple trees, milling at the camera in their wedding clothes many decades ago. One day, Elena confronted Gabriel, tears in her eyes and voice trembling. "Mijo, I think it's time for me to go to a nursing home," she said. "I don't want to hold you back or make you feel obligated. I know you've done so much for me." Gabriel looked at her with weary eyes. "Mama, don't be ridiculous," he said. "We'll talk about it another time. I have to get to a meeting now." And just like that, he dismissed her, leaving Elena feeling more invisible than ever over the next few weeks. Elena repeated her request, but each time Gabriel brushed it aside. He was always too busy or too tired. Camila would say, "We'll see, Elena, let's not rush." But no commitments were made and no steps taken. Inez's words echoed in her mind. "We end up being a nuisance to them. That's just how it goes." Soon, Elena found herself resigned to her fate, but the loneliness gnawed at her, a heavy ache settling in her chest day after day. At last one morning, Gabriel and Camila came into her room, their expressions unreadable. Gabriel held out a soft cotton blouse and a pair of slacks freshly ironed, and Camila set down a small toiletry bag on the dresser. "Mama, pack your things," Gabriel said, his voice calm. "We're going on a drive." Elena's heart skipped a beat. He thought they're finally doing it. They're taking me to a nursing home. To leave Metha like an old piece of furniture that doesn't fit their decor. Tears threatened to spill from her eyes, but she forced herself to remain calm. She nodded stiffly and began to fold her few belongings. She slipped the photograph of her and Daniel into the side pocket of her suitcase and pressed her lips together, trying to keep from crying. She wouldn't show them a weakness when the moment came. Gabriel escorted her gently into the car. Camila got into the front passenger seat as Gabriel started the engine. The ride began insolence. Elena stared out the window at the passing scenery, Sacramento's busy streets giving way to quieter roads, fields and vineyards, and the gentle roll of California hills drifted into view. Why were they heading north? She wondered. Perhaps the nursing home was in Napa, or somewhere far enough away that Gabriel and Camila wouldn't have to feel guilty visiting infrequently. Each passing moment felt the heavier. Elena clenched her hands in her lap, trying not to show her fear. The memory of Daniel and the orchard weighed on her mind, as if trying to remind her of all that she had lost. When Gabriel caught her eye in the rearview mirror and asked if she was all right, she managed a curt nod. "I'm fine, just a bit tired," she said. Camila offered a small smile. "We're almost there, Mama, you'll see." Elena's heart sank at the words. Almost there. They sounded final, like a threshold beyond which her old life would be completely erased. Soon the paved highway turned onto a smaller country road. Clusters of wildflowers dotted the shoulders and tall oaks swayed in the warm afternoon breeze. Elena's breathing grew uneven. This place looked too familiar, the contours of the hills and the pattern of trees. Something tugged at the memory, as if whispering that this was not just any countryside. As they climbed a gentle slope and turned onto a gravel path, the sound of crunching stones filled the car. Elena closed here, yes, bracing herself for the sight of Asterile Institutional Building, a place that would smell of antiseptic and resignation. Gabriel stopped the car and turned off the engine. Elena's heart pounded as she opened the door and offered her his arms. He stepped out, unsteady on her feet. Their knees buckling slightly, she lowered her gaze to the ground, unwilling to face what lay ahead, until Gabriel said softly, "Mama, look." Slowly Elena raised her eyes, and what she saw stole the breath from her lungs. Standing before her was a house, but not just any house. It was her house. The home she had lost, the very same front porch, the same gabled roof, and the same weathered shutters. Now fresh with new paint, she staggered back. Gabriel caught her arm, steadying her. "What?" she whispered. "How? How is this possible?" Camila approached, setting the suitcase down and smiling through tears. "It's not gone, Mama. We rebuilt it for you." Elena shook her head, tears blurring her vision. "But it burned down. I lost everything. Daniel, I can't." Her voice broke. Gabriel guided her forward. "Come inside," he said quietly. "We want you to see what we've done." The world felt surreal as Elena climbed the porch steps, the wood sturdy beneath her feet, the scent of fresh lumber and varnish drifting in the mild air. The front door opened with a gentle creak. Inside, the home was warm and inviting, every detail carefully restored to mirror what once had been. The living room walls were painted in the same soft cream hue, the hardwood floors gleaming beneath her feet, the furniture arranged just as she remembered it from decades ago. Elena's eyes landed on the mantel above the fireplace. A framed photograph stood there. Not the wedding photo she'd saved, but another one she feared lost forever. It's Howder and Daniel on their 10th anniversary, leaning against the orchard's fence, beaming at each other. "We searched for months," Gabriel explained, his voice thick with emotion. "We recovered some of the photos. People from around the neighborhood helped. They remembered you and Papa. They contributed pieces of their own memories." Elena pressed a hand to her chest. "You did all this while I thought you were too busy to care." Gabriel smiled sadly. "We were busy, Mama, busy making this happen. We wanted it to be a surprise. We knew how much this place meant to you. We wanted to give it back to you, so you'd never think you were a burden." Camila touched Elena's arm gently. "The orchard trees are young, still. We replanted them. They'll take time to bear fruit, but the soil is rich, and the land is yours. We used the permits you signed. Remember, you thought you were selling the land. We were using those documents to get construction approved." Elena walked through the rooms in a daze, each step unveiling, memory restored. Her old armchair had been reupholstered, but it was the same frame. The kitchen table was similar, if not identical, to the one she used to set for family dinners, and the curtains at the windows were the same pattern of wildflowers she adored so long ago. She found herself laughing through tears at the sight of the curtains. "I never thought I'd see these again." Gabriel stood behind her. "We searched online for that exact fabric. We wanted it just right." Elena's heart clenched with gratitude and overwhelming love. "I was so sure you wanted me gone," she said, voice quavering. "I thought the nursing home was what you had planned." Camila shook her head. Never, Mama. We wanted you to have a home you deserved, a place where you can feel whole again. We knew how much you missed Daniel, how lonely you felt in Sacramento. We didn't talk about it because we wanted it to be a complete surprise. Outside, a gentle whinny drew Elena's attention. Her heart leaped as she rushed to the door, and there beneath the late afternoon sun stood Estrella, the horse's chestnut coat gleaming. Estrella lowered her head as Elena approached, as if recognizing an old friend. Tears slipped down Elena's cheeks as she stroked the mare's mane. You saved her too? Gabriel nodded. Neighbors found her wandering after the fire. She was cared for by a family nearby. They were more than happy to return her to you once we were ready. Elena pressed her forehead against Estrella's neck, sobbing quietly. Daniel would be so proud, so happy we're home. Estrella, we're home. The evening light bathed the land in soft gold as Elena returned to the porch with Gabriel and Camila. They stood silently watching. Estrella Gray's a gentle breeze carried the scent of fresh soil and distant blossoms. Elena let out a shaky breath. I can't believe this. I feel like I'm dreaming. Gabriel slipped an arm around her shoulders. It's real, Mama, all of it. We never wanted you to feel unwanted or discarded. We wanted you to know you're the heart of our family. You gave me everything. You and Papa built a life that shaped who I am today. This was the least we could do to honor you. Elena nodded slowly, wiping her tears. You've given me more than I could have ever imagined, not just a home, but my dignity, my sense of belonging. I was so convinced I was just in your way, and now I see how wrong I was. Camila took Elena's hand. We love you, Mama. We always did. We just needed the time to show it in a way that mattered. Elena smiled through her tears. I'm sorry I doubted you. I'm sorry. I let the loneliness eat away at my faith in your love. Gabriel kissed her cheek. No apologies needed. Mom, everything we've done here, we did out of love. We want you to be happy to find peace again. The sky deepened into shades of rose and oranges. The sun dipped below the hills. Elena sat on the porch steps between her son and daughter-in-law. The silence around them now was comforting, not the echoing emptiness she'd known in the Sacramento apartment here. The silence was alive with possibility, the rustle of orchard leaves, the distant calls of birds coming to roost, and the soft breathing of Estrella, who stood as a living bridge to her past. Elena clasped her hands together and looked at Gabriel. So what happens now? Gabriel smiled. Now you live here as you always wanted, free to tend to the young orchard, or simply sit under the trees and remember Papa and all you built together. Camila and I will visit every weekend. We'll make this a place of family gatherings, a place full of laughter and warmth, just as it was meant to be. Elena's heart brimmed with gratitude. She stood and walked slowly through each room once more, unable to take in the details without tears clouding her vision. She lingered in the bedroom, running her fingers over the quilt on the bed, the pattern identical to that and Daniel had chosen decades ago. He zapped for a moment, breathing it in, remembering Daniel's laughter, the way he'd tilt this hat back and grin, either after a long day's work. The warmth of his presence is still felt near in these walls rebuilt with love outside. Gabriel and Camila waited patiently. When Elena returned to them, her voice was steady and filled with a gentle joy. Thank you both, you've brought me back to life. That night, they shared a simple meal. Camila had brought homemade tortillas and grilled vegetables. Gabriel uncorked a bottle of local wine. They clinked glasses together and ate on the porch table under the last glow of twilights, smiling and chatting softly. The fear and doubt that had weighed on Elena's heart for so long slipped away, replaced by trust, understanding, and love. Eventually, Gabriel and Camila said their good nights, promising to return the next day with more supplies. Elena walked them to their car, waving as they drove off along the gravel path. As darkness settled, Elena stood under Aski, awash with stars. She marveled at the constellations shining overhead. Breathing deeply of the cool night air for the first time in years, she felt whole, not just a surviving fragment to the woman she once was, but a person anchored in love and belonging. After all she had lost, she had gained something immeasurable, the affirmation that family didn't abandon one another. They build anew even from ashes, even when it seems impossible. Estrella echoed softly in the distance. Elena turned to look at the silhouette of the mare Aga against the moonlight and whispered, "We're home, Daniel. We're finally home." And for the first time in a very long time, Elena believed it with all her heart.